Lord Huron is my favorite band of all time, and they have been for many, many years now, ever since I first discovered them during the series finale of the show Community, during one of those final sequences where all the characters are parting ways and saying their emotional, heartfelt goodbyes, typical TV show finale activities. The song End to the Earth came on in the background. I was instantly struck by it. I remember looking up the song, discovering the album Lonesome Dreams, and at that time the band only had Lonesome Dreams and Strange Trails out. But that was more than enough for me. I listened to both of those albums for, those that had to be the only two albums I listened to for the next like at least month or so. It was crazy. It was an instant connection. Even from the start with those two albums, the band had this character to their music. They had this natural talent for crafting these rich soundscapes that would toe into ethereal territory sometimes, which would be further refined in their later work. But from the start, the storytelling was there, the emotion was there, the character was there, and above all, the music sounded incredible. So the band would later go on to refine their storytelling abilities with the album Vide Noir, which, like I just mentioned, leaned more into those cosmic, kind of otherworldly and ethereal soundscapes to paint an actual narrative this time around, where their first two albums were more about world building and abstract storytelling. Vide Noir did tell a story from start to finish, centered around this lonely traveler driven by heartbreak, going on this existential kind of surreal trip of a journey to find his lost love. And I think that album is really the one that solidified my love for this band. I think that their ability to tell stories the way that they do, make them sound the way that they do in their music, is second to none. Now, a few years later, the band would go on to release Long Lost, which is to date my favorite project that Lord Huron has put out. I think it encapsulated everything that they had been working towards up until that point. With each of their releases, their music kind of leaned more into I'm using the same words again, but the ethereal, the cosmic, the borderline, like supernatural. There was that otherworldly element to their music that Long Lost put on full display, and it even reflected in the story and the world that album built. This kind of radio station detached from the confines of space and time, playing these songs that were meant to preserve the memories and preserve the legacies of these different fictional artists and fictional bands that came to Whispering Pines to play their music. The story of Long Lost deserves a video all its own. But the point is, I thought Long Lost was their most realized, most fully kind of executed effort yet. It was their first real use of interludes. They had the track at the end, Time's Blur, which everything that track stands for, I just love. I really overall was very, very drawn to the mystique, to the atmosphere, to the lore that Long Lost laid out. I am a passionate storyteller at heart. I love stories. I am drawn to stories. I've read so many books as a kid growing up, to the point where my parents would tell me to put the books down and go hit the playground every once in a while. I watch movies whenever I can. I make my own short films whenever I can. Also, storytelling is just a big part of my life. It's a big part of why I consume art, why I'm drawn to art. And Lord Huron's storytelling is really, truly like nothing else out there. Which brings us to their new album, The Cosmic Selector Volume 1. This is a extremely powerful and potent album that I think takes what Long Lost did a step further. Not so much in the sense of the story that Long Lost was telling about, Whispering Pines and Tubbs and the radio station and time kind of erasing our thoughts and memories. If Long Lost was meant to signify time's erasure of our memories and our legacies, then the Cosmic Selector Volume 1, in my opinion, seems to treat time as a dimension that we can just cross and look into and access at any time and, draw from it what we want. Let me explain a little bit what I mean. The album opens up with essentially a mission statement, with the track Looking Back, with this character seeming to have, reached the end of his rope, reached the end of whatever road he's traveling on, looking back in regret. You hear regret come up as quite the recurring motif in this album. There are actually a lot of recurring motifs of regret and loss and love, which is nothing new for the band. Lyrically, there is not much new in this album, The Cosmic Selector, but it's all about the soundscapes and it's all about the atmosphere that the album builds around its music. Think about the promotional material that led up to this album. One of the biggest recurring visuals was this jukebox, right? The Cosmic Selector. And we see this jukebox kind of dropped into various locations, into various settings throughout this album. So if we go back and revisit the opening song, Looking Back, and view it as the mission statement as it is, in which Ben Schneider lays out his plans. I'm going to sit and see if I can wonder why forever. I'm going to go somewhere. I just want to reach this point so that I can look back and I can reflect on everything that led me up till this point. That mission statement would remain a through line, that carries us throughout the entire album. And a lot of these characters, a lot of these people that Ben Schneider is singing from the point of view of, bring up regret, bring up looking back. They bring this up, and the one kind of constant throughout the music remains this jukebox, right? This kind of cosmic entity. So I mentioned the contrast between this album's themes and Long Lost's approach to the idea of time erasing our memories and erasing our legacies. I think that the Cosmic Selector, aka the jukebox, that is, if you will, the main character of this album, I think is a very important kind of core principle to what this band is trying to communicate here, in that, in contrast to what Long Lost went for, time is something that we can access at will, at least within the universe and within the confines of this album. Perhaps it's something that the Cosmic Selector, that this jukebox kind of allows the characters to do. But in most of the songs on here, you hear about characters looking back and kind of talking about seeing past versions of themselves, seeing or hearing, whispers of their own past, or drawn to the woods by a presence without form, as he sings on Digging Up the Past. And alongside these concepts and ideas is a sound that has been engineered at this point to sound so much more cosmic and ethereal than anything the band might have began with Lonesome Dreams and Strange Trails. The sound at this point has reached this almost like its own character. I mean, seriously, the soundscapes throughout this entire album are so rich and so diverse also. You take a look at the singles, for example. We had the lead single, Who Laughs Last, which is unlike anything else on this album. And when it first came out, I thought, man, is this album going to have like a lot of spoken word or something? Is it going to have this kind of through line of narration that we're going to hear or something? Is Kristen Stewart just going to keep popping up in these songs? But now that the full album is out, you can kind of hear a lot of contrast in the different sounds that this album contains within. And I think it's very much by design. If you think about the journey that we're being taken on, this kind of... Sorry, that was my cat. If you think about the journey that we're being taken on with this album, the Cosmic Selector, this jukebox, is essentially accessing different pockets of time, different pockets of memory, different fragments of reality, and through that jukebox we essentially get to listen to these characters yearn and sing and cry and look back. Essentially we are being taken on this journey through time from the point of view of a jukebox. It's not so much time erasing our memories like Long Lost was, hinting at. Instead, it's rather time giving us access to our memories. So if we take the mission statement of this album at face value, everything that is laid out with the song Looking Back, we can then see the rest of this project for what it really is, in the sense that this jukebox is acting as a portal and allowing us to view these different pockets of reality and take a look into what's going on there. The way that I kind of view this album is as if Lord Huron kind of stepped into the multiverse. There is this kind of multiversal character to the project. I mean, exemplified for one by the contrasting sounds and different kinds of tones that the album goes for. And whereas Vide Noir kind of told its own singular story, and where Long Lost did grow a little bit more abstract, but still kind of told a focused narrative, I think the Cosmic Selector is much more abstract in its narrative, but still also pretty focused and cohesive in that these songs are kind of their own micro narratives, you know? I mean, the band's talent for bringing characters to life, bringing settings to life, shines through on just about every single one of these songs, you know what I mean? Nowhere on this album is that character and world building more prevalent than on the song The Comedian, which I think might be my favorite song on this album. It is one of the more simpler ones, but I mean, even from just the opening few seconds, you feel transported right there to this setting that this travel weary former comedian, I guess, is singing from. You know, I mean, you feel right there. You feel like you are sitting right next to this guy. There's just something about the overall sound of that song that whisks me away. That reminds me of the best that this band can really be. I mean, at their best, Lord Huron honestly transports you to a whole different world. And now it's quite literally transporting you to different worlds with the album The Cosmic Selector. I mentioned The Comedian. Bag of Bones, I kind of wish Bag of Bones was not a single because it might be one of the catchiest and just overall like best songs the band has ever made. I've been replaying that song a lot. I fear that I'm replaying it to the point of getting sick and tired of it eventually. I really hope not. But you'll see that most of the songs on this album follow the mission statement that Looking Back began, right? And throughout the album, you'll kind of also find this interesting push and pull between characters being drawn to the cosmic forces that the jukebox kind of gives them access to, you know, allowing them to look into the fire, so to speak, as the song It All Comes Back points out. And there's other tracks on here, like Watch Me Go, like Who Laughs Last, that seem as if the character is kind of running away from such a force. So it's an interesting thing to note. You find these characters drawn to the power that the Cosmic Selector grants them. There is kind of this divine revelation that the Cosmic Selector grants access to. I mean, imagine if you personally could go to some room in your house and look into a mirror and just see all dimensions of your life. You know what I mean? Where time doesn't necessarily define what you're seeing and what you have yet to see.
If you could see your whole life from start to finish, would you change things?
Maybe I'd say what I feel more often. I don't know.
I mean, there are songs on here, especially with the song Is There Anybody Out There, which kind of seems to warn about the loneliness that such a privilege can grant you. I mean, if you can see everything all at once, then what are you surrounded by, I guess? You know, and there's not necessarily an actual answer to that. It's just one of the questions that the album kind of poses up. And that, I think, is the identity of this album. It poses up a lot of possibilities and questions that I think Volume 2 might answer. You know, I'm curious to see how far they take the whole Cosmic Selector arc, because Volume 1, I mean, there could be a Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4. I mean, not that I think the rest of their albums are all going to be various editions of the Cosmic Selector, but I'm interested to see how the band chooses to follow up this project. I mean, very intentionally calling it Volume 1. There's definitely plans for some continuations, right? I really like how the album closes with Life is Strange, feeling like a revelation of sorts almost, where after we see these characters confront their regrets and face their fears and face the loneliness and embracing the void, there is this kind of down-to-earth realization of life is strange, so am I. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to live, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, think about the promotional lead up to this album, not just with the singles, but also with those kind of posters that the band was putting out. These posters that outline the void, you know, these posters that kind of urge the reader to look into the void, to embrace the void, saying things along the lines of, you know, you've known there must be more out there, you just didn't know where to look. It's as if this album taps into our, you know, humanity's own kind of eye for the supernatural, eye for the otherworldly, and chooses to make that a reality, chooses to say, what if you could, you know, look into any aspect of time, and what if you could kind of look back on your own life and talk to your former self and see your future self. You know, with lyrics, for example, on the song "Is There Anybody Out There?" Glimpsed a ghost in the darkness, stared me straight in the eye. It was only my own face, faintly mirrored in memory and moonlight. Heard a voice in the vastness, whisper words in my ear. It was only my own noise, dimly echoed across the years. That, I think, is one of the most powerful passages on this entire album, and kind of gets at what the project as a whole is working towards, you know, and what the project as a whole is allowing these characters to view. So after you view your life in this way, the only realization you can have at the end is, well, life is strange. So I really appreciate the way this album ends. So yeah, I think I'm going to close the review with these thoughts. This isn't really a traditional album review where I just go track by track and kind of talk about the music. I mean, there are people out there who do music reviews on YouTube for a living who could probably dive into the songs on here better than I could. I just wanted to make a video to kind of talk about the narrative, talk about the atmosphere, and talk about the world that I think is being built with the Cosmic Selector, because that's why I am drawn to Lord Huron's music. It's for the atmosphere and for the world building. I just hope that you found this video insightful in any way. You know, fellow Lord Huron fans, I mean, you guys are probably just like me. You listen to this music for the atmosphere and for the storytelling. So I would love to hear what you took away from this album. I mean, if you maybe disagree with every single point I might have offered up in here, or if you agree with some of them, let me know what you took away with this project, the Cosmic Selector Volume 1. And yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. I really, truly hope that you enjoyed this video, that you found it beneficial in some way, that it maybe offered some insight into the album that you may not have had before, or maybe everything I said here was super freaking obvious and who cares, right? Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Take care. Love you all so much, and peace out.